So you notice what's off before you notice what's working. You feel when something is coherent and when it isn't. You care about tone, about rhythm, and whether all the pieces speak the same language. And that's your real gift right there. That's what makes you special. But it also means that you probably spent more time refining than releasing. Okay? I know. More time consuming than creating, more time thinking not yet than thinking that's good enough. Who am I talking to? And here's what I want you to hear before we get into any of this. I want you to hear me clearly on this. There's nothing wrong with that. That is not a flaw. I repeat, it is not a flaw. That's your thinking style. The problem isn't your standards. The problem is that nobody ever showed you how to build a creative process that actually works with the way your brain operates and honors it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be walking through what aesthetic thinking actually is, why it gets stuck in predictable ways, and most importantly, we're going to talk about a workflow, a confidence path that is designed for how you actually think. So it's not going to be louder, it's not about being faster, it's about being aligned. And this one feels special, y'all. I don't know why it does, but it just does. So if you are feeling like this is resonating with you, if it's feeling like it's hitting on something for you, let me know. Drop it in the chat. Just put me in the chat if it's feeling like you, or put me in the comments if you are watching the replay. Keep on watching because I'm about to read your whole life in the best way possible. My hope and expectation is that by the end of this video, you are going to leave feeling excited about your brain, your creative thinking style. You're going to know what it looks like to be confident and to own it. And you're going to also get an idea of what it looks like to express it in a way where procrastination is not in the front seat, especially not in the driver's seat. It sounded like you. Yes. Okay. Well, you are in the right place. So, before we get into breaking down what is an aesthetic thinker, I want to extend the invitation to work with me to figure out what your creative thinking style is. So, I do these breakdowns and I give you a rundown of every style and we do the case study. However, the truest way to know what your creative thinking style is by taking the creative thinking style assessment. So what we do together is we go through the assessment. It is a set of questions that I ask you. At the end of the assessment, that's when we get into the strategy, the custom strategy, because now we know how your brain works and we also know what it is that you are trying to do, what you are striving to do. And we create a strategy that is either going to focus on your content rhythm, it can focus on what you actually are going to sell, what business offers to get into, or we can simply talk about your creative rhythm and your flow and how to get into a space where you can create at a consistent rhythm that honors your creative thinking style. So I'm going to drop the information to book that session if that is something that interests you. If you are hearing some things that sound like you and you want to know what a strategy looks like to help you to move forward and own your creative thinking style, make sure you tap in with me. Okay. So let's get into an aesthetic thinker. Your primary goal or question as a creative thinker isn't, is this new? But does this feel right? And the aesthetic thinker is very feelings oriented. It is very tapped into the emotions, is tapped into the experience and the way that things feel. And on the surface, it might feel like it's vain, it might feel like it's superficial, but what you bring to the creative process as an aesthetic thinker is so much more than that because it really speaks to the heart and it speaks to the way that the way that people actually feel in this space. And so if you think about it, even when it comes to literally anything that you do when it comes to business, especially when it comes to marketing, being able to tap into the emotions, the feel, and to create an experience that aligns with that, that gives the desired effect and result that people are looking for is critical. And that's where aesthetic thinkers shine. So you have something that is called sensory intelligence. So we talk about emotional intelligence, we talk about the IQ, just the regular intelligence, but sensory intelligence is special because it focuses on form, it focuses on tone, rhythm, proportion, and the atmosphere. And so you are specifically, like, particularly keen and adept at picking up on what those things are, even if you are not the best at articulating it, but you can feel it. You feel it typically before you can actually understand it or articulate it, right? So here is how this works in your brain. You have pattern recognition, you have emotional attunement, which goes into the sensory intelligence. You have an embodied sensing. So, like I said, you feel it. You can sense when things feel off. There's something about it. It's like, that doesn't that's rubbing me the wrong way, or oh, that feels really good. We should do more of that, or we should add this here. We should put that there. And so this is a very distinctive creative mode because it's not about being picky, even though people will probably call you picky, or about having good taste. And this is going to be, I want you to really like let this soak in, because one of the things that you might fall into the trope of believing as an aesthetic thinker is that you need to have formal training, or you need to have gone to school for design, or you need to have gone to school for art, or you need to have gone to school for something arts related where you learn the design principles and concepts. All that stuff is cool. That's great. However, it's not a requirement to be an aesthetic thinker because, again, you may not have the credentials when it comes to the education to back up what you're saying, but it's just how your brain is wired. You just naturally sense it. You're tuned into it. And so you may not necessarily know the complementary colors. You may not know that purple and yellow go together for some reason. You may not understand why that's a thing, but you can sense it. You can feel when things are harmonious, when there's balance, when it makes sense, and when it's speaking the right language. So there are four key strengths that you have as an aesthetic thinker. So the first one is coherence and unity. So you notice what doesn't belong and you notice what does. The next one is emotional accessibility. You make ideas felt, not just understood. Again, that's super important because as humans, we feel things. We respond to things emotionally before we do logically. And that's just across the board. I don't care what everybody tell you about women being emotion led and men being logically led. We're humans. We respond emotionally to things. And so you being able to communicate that and to communicate to get the desired effect and feeling to resonate with people is very, very important. Okay. The next one is taste as intelligence. You're able to you have a cultivated discernment. It's picky, it's particular. You know what like looks good, you know what feels good, you know why you organize words and even design rooms, or even organize people and groups in a particular way because you got taste. You're discerning, and then it is communicated in the way that you present it physically. The other thing that you have as a strength is sense making through form. So you shape how ideas land, which goes again to the sensory intelligence, and being able to tap into the emotions and understand them in a very intimate way. So if you are still feeling like the aesthetic thinker is resonating with you, if you identify with any of those strengths in the breakdown that I gave, I want you to let me know which one is really hitting the hardest for you. Which of those strengths feels like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't realize that that's what I was doing, but that's exactly what I'm doing." So whether that's the coherence and unity, or emotional accessibility, taste as intelligence, or sense making through form. Let me know which one of those strengths feels like, oh, yeah, I feel that one deep down. And if it's more, let me know. Let me know. Emotional accessibility. Okay. That is really good. So, how I would love to hear how you've seen it. Let me know, like, paint a picture for me. Give me an idea of how it shows up for you and where you've noticed it. For me, I'm not an aesthetic thinker. I won't say, okay, let me clarify. Let me clarify. Aesthetic thinking is not my dominant one by any stretch of the imagination, which has always been very funny to me because I've always been a creative. I've always been someone who designs since I was 5 years old. I was sewing clothes, cutting up socks to make dresses for my Barbie doll. I would get designs in my head, but when it comes to it showing up consistently, that has never really been my thing. Like, I've never been much of an aesthetic thinker. However, the emotional intelligence, the emotional accessibility is definitely one that I feel I probably use the most when I do tap into my aesthetic thinking. Adrian, whoop whoop, welcome in. We're talking about the aesthetic thinker. You missed the beginning. You only missed part one, but it's okay. You came at a great time. Adrian, you all, is our resident aesthetic thinker. So I'm about to be talking all about you in today's video. So let's get into part two. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about why this style gets stuck, because I'm not saying that all the other thinking styles don't have their things. Every creative thinking style has their thing that gets them stuck, that can be a stretch, a challenge for them, some obstacles to overcome. And the same is going to be true for the aesthetic thinker. But what I will say is that I think that oftentimes aesthetic thinkers can tend to be more sensitive, not to the point where they can't take critique or they can't take feedback. But what I will say is that it's important for them to feel understood, and it's important for their perspective to be understood. I was about to say the same thing over again. So because of the sensitivity, not only to critique, but also to the standards that you have for your work, and the importance of the unity and the harmony, the balance, the cohesion, all of those things are important to you. And so, because of that, you may be more prone to not putting out as much as is necessary. Okay. So that's my disclaimer. That's my disclaimer. So y'all ready? If you're ready for part two, I see Adrian's ready. We are going to get into it. So the core idea for the aesthetic thinker and the style, how you get stuck. Yeah, your sensitivity is a gift, but it's unbuffered. Okay. It need a little polish, a little spit shine. So let's talk about a couple of these blocks. The first one that you might hear yourself repeat, is that it's not ready yet. Okay. And if any of these is resonating with you, I want you to put the number for it in the chat. So if number one sounds like something that gets you stuck, I want you to put number one, number two, number three, so on and so forth. Okay. So number one, it's not ready yet. Okay. So your discernment has outpaced your execution rhythm. Okay. You can see the gap, so you freeze. And this is particularly important because again, you do have standards and you do have a sensitivity to when things feel off. And it's important for you to know when done is good enough. Done is good enough. And there is this phrase that I learned recently. I think it's called minimum viable product. Uh I feel like the last word is not right, but we're going to go with that for now. So let's call it minimum viable product. And it basically is what is the minimum that I can do to check this off my list? What's the minimum that I can get out and still be good with what I did? Still be good with this work. That is something that you are going to need to understand about yourself and your work so that you don't get stuck when something is off. You don't get stuck in constant tweak here, adjust here, twist here, turn here. You got to put your work out, friend. You got to put your work out. I'm right. It's MVP. Minimum viable product? That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So what's your MVP? That's what's your MVP? It's probably going to be consistent across all the numbers, but that's your first one. Number 2, perfectionism disguised as integrity. Don't come for me, okay? I'm just the messenger. So, if this goes out imperfect, this is what you're saying. If this goes out imperfect, it misrepresents me. But the hidden cost is that nothing represents you at all. You ain't got nothing out there, you're not being represented anyway. So we're gonna go with the misrepresentation or no representation. The visibility that can use some work or being invisible. Okay. So the perfectionism disguised as integrity. And I did an entire series on perfectionism and why it is ruining your creativity. I definitely would highly suggest you checking that out after you go through the creative thinking styles, of course. But that whole series breaks this down perfectly. Number three, Number 3. So if 1 or 2 are yours, don't forget, drop a 1 or a 2 in the comments. We are moving on to number 3. Over curation leading to emotional distance. Okay? So your work is beautiful, but it's sealed. People connect to coherence and presence, not just coherence. And here's what I want to say to that, or here's a way I would illustrate that. So have you ever seen something that looks so good? Like let's say it's a video. A video that looks so good, is so well crafted, is so well put together, but it doesn't actually resonate with you. Like it doesn't feel like it has any real soul to it, any real heart to it. Like you can appreciate the craftsmanship and you can appreciate the work and the effort that the person put into it, but it doesn't feel like it resonates with you. It doesn't click with you. I know that I've personally seen a lot of great looking content, a lot of content that was well done when it comes to the execution and the equipment that was used to record it, but did it make me feel something? Not so much. And I think that that's what's really been what we're really seeing when it comes to social media, especially when we think about how wild the growth and the takeover of TikTok was and how it shook up social media, because up until then we were used to seeing very curated, very polished social content. And then here comes TikTok, and people are putting out these videos that don't look the best. They don't have the best audio. Some of them are recorded in the dark in the bed with their bonnet on, but those videos are connecting with people because they can feel the emotion behind it. They can resonate with it. They can connect to it. It feels relatable. And so what you risk when it comes to over curating your content is creating an emotional distance from your audience. And remember, as an aesthetic thinker, your ability to tap into the emotion is your strength. So you risk diminishing, watering down your strength for the sake of curating it perfectly and making it make sense and making it all flow and making it beautiful. I don't want you to hear, though, that you shouldn't put out good work and that you shouldn't improve and that it shouldn't get better. But what I do want you to know is that it hits a moment. Going back to our MVP. What's my MVP? Can I put this out and then make the next one a little bit better and then a little bit better and a little bit better with each one that I put out? Okay. There's actually something that I wanted to touch on with that one in particular, but I'll put a pin in that. If I make it back to it, then I will. But I'll put a pin in that for now. The next one, number 4, is comparison collapse. So you're judging your slow, intentional process against people with completely different creative rhythms. Completely different. You, as an aesthetic thinker, trying to compare your process and your output to a divergent thinker is the perfect recipe for disaster. Perfect recipe. You're never going to catch them, friend. You're never going to catch them. When it comes to the output, they're probably running circles when it comes to the numbers. And that's okay because that's their process. Yours is different. Yours is different. So it's very tricky, especially when it comes to platforms like TikTok, any platform where short form content is the driving factor. It's going to be a challenge for you. But that doesn't mean that you need to now become a divergent thinker. You don't need to be more like them. You need to be more like you. Okay. But the comparison collapse is where a lot of aesthetic thinkers can tend to get stuck. That's you. Number 5, we're down for number 5 is waiting for confidence before visibility. My goodness. So for aesthetic thinkers, confidence is evidence based. And I'm going to go as far as to say that that is true across the board. Okay. Across the board. Confidence is evidence based. You got to see it to believe it. Like for real, for real. All these cliches, man, they be coming back. You got to see it to believe it. And so the you showing up, you doing the work, you putting it out there is what you need to build your confidence. So if you're waiting for confidence to show up before you get visible, we're going to be waiting for a while. We're going to be waiting for a while. You got to that's where your courage has to kick in. That is where you got to have the faith and the hope that I was talking about earlier and put your stuff out there and allow your confidence to be built when the evidence shows that you are that girl. Been that girl. Been her. Been him. You just simply needed to show up. Prove it to yourself because it's really not for other people. It's for you. You need it so that you can continue to keep showing up, right? Oh, I knew it. I knew it with this aesthetic thinker, boy. I was like, this one felt like I couldn't wait to turn this camera on and talk about this one. So those are your areas where you can get stuck. And there's honestly more. There's actually 7 different ones that I have, but I am not going to throw all those out there today. But what I want you to know is that whichever one of the 5, maybe it's all 5 depending on what it is. One of the biggest things, the key things that I want you to remember with getting stuck is go back to your MVP. Determine what that is actually quite important for you as an aesthetic thinker to know what is the minimum that I can put out so that I can sleep at night and I can know I did my job, I showed up, and that I put out the work that I needed to. There's this strategy that I have been playing around with for myself, and it is one where it allows me to have my not signature, but I need to have a good balance of I got to show up every day. Like that's my personal consistency. Yours may be different, but that's mine. I need to show up on these platforms every day. And so, in order for me to do that, I know that everything that I put out is not going to be my best work. It's not going to always be the video I wanted to edit. It's not going to always look as clean and as crisp as I like it to. I love using the camera that I'm using right now, but I don't always have the time to go and whip up no whole YouTube video and use this camera to record, transfer the videos. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And so the structure, the strategy rather that I'm working on gives me time where I can be more creative and have things that are bigger and more complex projects. And then I have the stuff that I'm putting it out so I can get this idea out, and I'm showing up in both ways. Can I get food? Can Kyrie, I can't give you anything right now. So you're gonna have to wait. You know that. Okay. Yes. Minimum viable content. I like that. Yeah. Minimum viable content. But it's true not just for content though. Not just for content. But in this case, yes. Yeah. So let's talk about a workflow. So we talked about what gets you stuck. We've talked about the characteristics that you have as an aesthetic thinker. And so now let's talk about a workflow that will help you because perfectionism is going to be one of your biggest enemies when it comes to being an aesthetic thinker. Perfectionism is got hands. I know it does. And so we're going to talk about what it looks like to navigate that and how you can still show up when perfectionism decides to crash the party. So perfectionism happens because your aesthetic judgment turns on too early. Okay. And I'm gonna break that down. So your eye is doing its job. You're doing your part as an aesthetic thinker. However, it's happening at the wrong phase. Okay. It's happening at the wrong part of the process. So here's a rule that you're going to keep with you. Put this in your back pocket. Keep this for later. Never ask a later stage question in an earlier stage. That's going to be your rule that I want you to hold on to because that's going to save your workflow. Save the questions for when they're appropriate. Focus on what's important and what's relevant in each stage. All right. So let's walk through these 5 stages. Stage number 1 is sensory seeding. Okay. So this is you collecting references, textures, visuals. You're not creating, you're not organizing. You're feeding your taste without demanding results. You're simply allowing yourself to be inspired, to be taken away to a new place, to go outside of this world and get into your imagination and just let it just take you wherever. Just ride the wave, go with it. And this is going to be important that you give yourself a time limit. So the bounds that you need are time related, not openness. So don't be afraid of how expansive your mind can go with the idea, but give yourself a time limit so that your progress can continue to move. Okay? So be inspired, be open, but don't stay there. Okay? So this can look like you creating a mood board, hopping on Pinterest and putting together a pinspiration board. I don't know if people call it pinspiration anymore, but we're gonna call it that today. All right, throwback. Creating inspiration board, gathering inspiration from other creators, other designs that you saw that inspired you, other ways that people have organized their memberships or their communities or their programs. As an aesthetic thinker, you're not just designing things, you're not just creating art. That's not the only way that aesthetic thinking shows up, but it's about the overall feeling, the experience, the coherence, the cohesion, the harmony. That's what you create regardless of what that shows up as. So wherever your inspiration comes from, that's what I'm referring to, and however you organize that. Step 2 is the rough expression of it. Write badly, get the idea out your head, do a sketch that's probably ugly or just gibberish, just scribbles, but get the sketches out there. Do it loosely, record the messy voice notes. This is about speed over beauty, getting the all that inspiration that you gathered up in here, getting it out onto paper or onto computer or onto phone, wherever it needs to go, get it out of your head. So this gives your aesthetic sense something concrete to refine later. Okay, y'all following me so far? So we're going to be moving. We're just on step 2, rough expression, bless you. Step 3 is going to be single lens refinement. Now, this is where you get to turn on your taste, okay? This is where you get to turn it up and let your aesthetic thinking really take off. So then this is where you get to use it, but narrowly. So one pass, one lens, one band, one sound. I can never do like that one thing without thinking about drumline. One band, one sound. That's you in this phase. So what that looks like is going over your work and looking for one thing. So if we were talking about writing, you are going over it and you're really only paying attention to the tone, or you're going over it and now this is where we talk about is this organized in a way that makes sense. That's the only thing you're focusing on. You're going to skip that typo. You're going to skip the fact that you was probably rambling for a few sentences or a few paragraphs. We're not worried about that. We're doing one pass and focusing on one thing. So this prevents the spiral where everything feels wrong at the exact same time. Because how many of us have felt that? You look at that thing and you're like, wow, I have so much work to do. And it gets a little depressing. I've I've had that plenty of times. Plenty of times. So that's step 3. Step 4, external friction check. So this is where you get to now share your work. Notice we're not waiting until it is perfect. We're not waiting until it is refined to share it with people. All right. Don't save your work until the end. Let somebody see it. It ain't got to be the world. It doesn't have to be posted on your platform. You don't have to build everything in public, but you should be sharing it and getting some other people's perspectives. Share it with 1 to 3 people and ask one specific question. Does this feel calm or tense? Does this it doesn't have to be that exact question, that's just an example, but giving them specific things that you want to have the answer to, which you're going to probably already have questions from step 3 when you went over it with the one lens. Okay, you can ask them, where did your attention start to drift? You're checking for impact. Okay, you're checking to see how it lands with people, not the taste, and if it's aligned with that. Now, we are finally at step number 5, publish at 85%. What? Not 100? Not perfect? No. 85%. So we know that the whatever it is that you've been working on, we know that it's coherent, we know that it's intentional, we know that emotionally it is landing the way that it needs to, but it's not flawless. And that is okay. It's actually more than okay because your audience experiences your work at first contact, not at infinite polish, which simply means they have to see it to experience it. And if you continue to try to polish it before you present it, you are missing out on the part where you get to actually see how is this working? How is this landing? How is this resonating? And that's why I mentioned earlier when you said minimum viable content, I was like, yes. And this can go across the board for your work in general, not just your content, because this is something that, as an aesthetic thinker, those places where you get stuck show up in other places that have nothing to do with your content. It can show up at any aspect of your work. It can show up when you're simply having a conversation with somebody. It can show up when you are designing that ebook that you want to sell. It can show up when you are working on your first course. It can show up when you're working with a client and you want to get their feedback on it and you feel like I have to wait until I've completely finished it, and you don't. You can use this to check in. You can take them along in the process, right? Like, you're not obligated to have it perfect before you can put it out. So, between 1 and 5, let me know which one of these steps do you find yourself getting stuck at. I'll go back over them one more time just in case you need a refresher. Step 1 is sensory seating. Step 2 is rough expression. Step 3, single lens refinement. Step 4, external friction check. And step 5, publish at 85%. I feel that although I'm not an aesthetic thinker, I can definitely see myself getting stuck on number 3. I can see that being the one where it's like, okay, girl, look, let's scale it back. Scale it back. Because you went too far and now you stressed yourself out. Let's go back over this and let's just focus on one thing right now, friend. That's me talking to me. So I know mine would be number 3. I would love to hear what yours would be. Let me see. Okay, let me bring my phone so I can see what you're saying. I find myself leaning on my inspiration for things my aesthetic would do best. My aesthetic is strong in writing, but not design. I don't see anything to recreate. That's my struggle with branding. Oh, okay. Okay. Hold on. Let me see this again. I find myself leaning on my inspiration for things my aesthetic would do best. My aesthetic is strong in writing, but not design. I don't see anything to recreate. That's my struggle with branding. Okay. Give me an example of what that looks like, Adrian. I think I get what you're saying, but I would love to see um if your example lines up with what I think you're saying. But what it sounds to me is like you're basically saying that you don't lean on the aesthetic as much, or you only use it for very particular things. And I think that's an interesting thing that I have been noticing when it comes to the different creative thinking styles, especially the ones that are not the dominant ones. I have theories on that. And one of the biggest ones that I'll say without taking it into a whole different topic, but one thing that I will say is that I believe that the a lot of times the secondary thinking style is the one where people don't have as much faith in it, or they haven't had as much experience with it. And the one that oftentimes I think can be overlooked, or it can feel like a challenge to really accept it because it is not what you would expect for yourself. And I know that might definitely be true for you, Adrian, because I know that aesthetic was not it was not on your bingo card. So you're like, wait, what? Aesthetic. That's what I've been doing this whole time. So, not really knowing what you're capable of is basically what I'm saying, like what your aesthetic thinking can really do and how it can really show up for you. So, I feel like it is when you know it, it also is an invitation to explore and to learn more about yourself and not to force it. You know, use it for what you can, use it however you can, and then know that the more that you stand in it, and now that you know what it is, you are paying attention to it and you're recognizing it. And I think that it will also give you the courage to push the limits and to see, oh, you know what? I didn't really think that I was good at this. I didn't think that I was skilled at this, but I actually have an eye for design. I may not be the person that's going to execute it, but I know taste. I know how to direct this. I know how to position this. I know what makes sense and what will look good. And I can relay that to the person who can get it done. You know, so you never know what it can really show up and do for you. But let me know if that's what you're saying. Like, I know the feel is off with graphic design for content, but I don't have an idea or picture in my head that would make it better. Like I said, the designs I was receiving was missing soul. Ah, yes, yes, yes. What I will say, Adrian, I'm gonna say this real quick, and then we're gonna move on. But I think that you actually have a very keen eye for design, but you just didn't realize that you didn't realize that you had that. And working with you and seeing what you sense and what you can pick up, I feel like the only thing that has made it a challenge is knowing how to communicate it. But I feel like you actually have more of that in you than you may realize. So I'm actually very excited to see where you go with it, but you have a really good eye for design. You have a really good eye for design. So don't leave that there. I might follow up about it later, but for now, that's how I feel about it. All right. Yes. Okay. Oh, all right. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Okay. So are y'all ready for part 4? Yeah, yeah. No, you working it. You working it. You're doing the things. Let's get into part 4. So let's talk about how your confidence actually builds. This is one of the parts, y'all, that I am so excited for. There's multiple reasons why, but for now, I'm just gonna say this section is gonna really be helpful. Okay, so tune into this one. The core idea for aesthetic thinkers is that you don't gain confidence from volume or praise. You gain confidence from alignment. You can get compliments all day. You can get people telling you, oh, this is amazing. I love this. It's beautiful. But for you, what really makes you feel confident is knowing that you are in alignment. That when you feel like, oh my goodness, yeah, that's right. That feels good. I feel powerful here. That's it for you. That's where it really clicks. So let's talk about what your confidence will look like the journey of building your confidence. This is what it's going to look like. So, early stages, you know what good looks like before you can make it. Yeah, okay. You know what it looks like before you can make it, and that gap is painful, but it is normal. That's early stages. And when I say early stages, I mean when you recognize that maybe you don't. Let me not say that. But this is around a time where you're starting to realize and recognize that you have this gift, that you have this style of thinking. This is the skill that you have. Now, moving on past early, going into somewhere like early mid stages, you start publishing within constraints. So your confidence shifts from I could make something good to I can make something coherent and it lands. It makes sense. It does what I needed to do. Still though, you're still operating within constraints. So you're not allowing yourself to just fully be free in your expression of it, but you're moving in the right direction. This is where you start to get stable. This is what this looks like. You stop asking, is this good enough? And you start asking, is this me? Like, does this feel like it aligns with who I am? And your decision making starts to speed up, it starts to get faster. And that's how you know, oh, I'm really like I'm really building my confidence in this. Like this is it's really honestly it's really established by this point. It's stable, but you can still take it up another notch, which is expanding. So at this stage, this is the final stage. You are fully realized, you're like super saiyan when it comes to the aesthetic thinking, and you experiment without panicking. You just doing stuff. And it's great. You're having so much fun. That's when you know that your confidence as an aesthetic thinker has really leveled up. So you break your own rules selectively, intentionally, right? You know, like, you know what? I wouldn't normally do this, but there's a reason, there's a good reason for this. So you nothing threatens your core coherence anymore. And so what this means in essence is that you get to a place where you are so confident in your way of thinking, you're so confident in your creativity that you give yourself the space to explore it without fearing that you're going to veer off, without fearing that it's going to go too far, that's going to go, way off the deep end. And it makes me think about people like Childish Gambino, or people like Issa Rae, or people like there's someone that was like at the top of my mind, Jamie Foxx. Those people, Tabitha Brown, those are people that at their core, who they are as creatives has not changed, has not shifted, but they're able to flex between so many different disciplines and so many different genres and so many different ways of creating and expressing their creativity, but who they are at their core has remained intact. You still know who they are. That's when you know your brand is solid. Okay. It's good. I'm going to do whatever I can because I can. That's the kind of confidence that I want you to get to as an aesthetic thinker. And it's possible. And it really helps for you to know which stage am I at, which level am I at. And that's actually a great question to ask you all. So let me know in the chats, in the comment section for my replay watchers, which stage do you feel that you are at as an aesthetic thinker? And don't feel any shame, don't feel bad no matter what stage that you're at, because it's okay. No matter where you are, you can still grow. Even at the expanding stage, although you are not necessarily moving to another level when it comes to your confidence, you're now in a place where it's like limitless. You have the freedom to really explore and to push yourself and to try the things that you think about without having the same concerns that you would at the early stage or at the mid stage. So let me know which one of those stages sounds like where you are at: early, mid, stable, or expanding. So one thing I want to close out that section with before we move on to part 5, which is it's a cool part, y'all. It's a cool part. It's a new one that I didn't do for the other thinking styles. So aesthetic thinkers, y'all got it really good because I clowned on this format this time. So but before we move into it, I want to remind you of something that's very key that I want you to hold in your heart. As an aesthetic thinker, your growth is not linear. It's not linear. It actually compounds, which is why it is so important for you to keep creating, create. Keep creating, keep putting it out there. Everything that you do is building up the evidence that you need to prove to yourself You got this. You can do it. And what you'll notice is that the more that you create, the more that you put out there, the more that you try, the more that you do, you'll see your confidence compound over time. And it won't even be like little baby steps. Maybe at the beginning it'll feel like, okay, a little bit more confidence here, a little bit more here, a little bit more here. No, it's finna be compound, multiply, multiply, exponential, because no matter, I promise y'all, no matter who I have observed, no matter who I've watched that are creators, there's this jump that is like this wild jump, this leap that they go from where you see them when they're still, a little shaky. Maybe they're like mid stages, maybe they're stable, but they're still playing it safe, they're still staying within their parameters, within their constraints. And then all of a sudden, it's like they just take off. And it happens every single time. There has never been a time where I have not witnessed someone's growth and it not be exponential, because it starts to compound over time. And if there's anything else that I can say that would encourage you, that would inspire you, that would make you see that the best thing for you is to continue to create and put it out there, because that compound goes crazy. It goes crazy when you start to just put it out there. Your confidence builds. You start doing things and you're like, what? Wait a minute. Like, I didn't even know I had that in me. But it's because you just kept putting it out there. You kept doing it, you kept showing up, and you kept showing yourself, I can do this. So I want to encourage you as an aesthetic thinker and as any creative thinker. This is true for us across the board. The confidence compounds when you create. Okay. So keep that in you, keep that energy in you. Borrow some of my excitement and my energy. If you're not really feeling it for yourself right now, take it all. Just take it all in. Let me throw it at you. Take all this energy. It's okay. My mouse dropped. Yes, that part. I do what I can because I can. And period. And period. Yes. Kyrie, you have to stop interrupting. Go look in the fridge. There's stuff there. Go, go. Okay. All right, y'all. So let's get into our what part 5. I didn't tell y'all what part 5 was yet. So this is what to do this week. So I told y'all this is the first time I did this segment for any other creative thinking. So aesthetic thinkers, I need y'all to show up. Okay. Show up and show out. Take my advice. Do these things that you can see for yourself. Jada's not tripping. She was right. And then you can come back and tell me I was right. Okay. So here is what you can do this week. These are some actionable steps that you can take home with you. Put this in your repertoire so that you can start to make some moves as an aesthetic thinker. So here are some anti-perfectionist principles, anti-perfectionism principles. Clarity before beauty. Okay. You want to make it great. You want to make it pretty. That's great. But clarity comes first. Coherence before novelty. Okay. Coherence before novelty. When I say that, the first thing that comes to my mind is when people are like, I want to do something that nobody's ever done before. I need this to just be different than anything anybody has ever seen. I haven't seen anybody doing this. And that's great, y'all. That's great. But what matters more is that it actually makes sense. It actually makes sense. It actually flows in a way that people can understand and resonate with it. Okay. The next thing is impact before elegance. Because no matter where we are on the spectrum of creative thinking, we're here to make an impact. And that should be our primary objective. The last one, the last principle is published before pristine. And this goes back to our MVP, our MVC. Thanks to Adrian. Our MVP, our MVC. What is the minimum that I can put out where I can still feel like I did my job? All right. So here is a rhythm. Here is what this can look like this week. Or let's say you want to start fresh and you want to start this on Monday, right? So the first thing that you will do is that make day one your sensory seating day. So remember, go back to the part where I broke down the stages, because we're going to break the stages down over a series of days. So day one is your sensory seating. Remember, give it a time limit. Don't limit the possibilities though. Limit the time, not the possibilities. Day two, that's going to be your rough expression. Get it out of your head. You've done all of your planning, you've done all of your inspiration gathering. Put it down somewhere where it is no longer living up here. Day three, one refinement pass. And I want you to think about what it is that you want to try this on. I should have said this beforehand, but I felt like it was probably like you probably gathered that's what I meant by this. But I want you to think about an idea, a project that you want to execute. This could even be content, and just try this out with content. So follow this process so that you can get to the point where you have something executed by day five. So day four, that's where you do your external check, share it with somebody, share it with a couple of somebodies, ask them very specific questions that will give you the information that you need to polish it up to 85%, not to perfect. So I'm going to go as far as to say that wherever this thing is by day five, it's done. Okay. It is done. I don't care what it looks like. By day five, it is done. And now it is time for you to publish it. All right. So some platform reminders. Choose platforms that reward consistency of tone and depth over speed. If you do not know what those platforms are, I'm going to be nice and I'm going to give you a hint. Okay. So those can be YouTube, Substack, Pinterest, and surprisingly, Instagram. Surprisingly, because I've expressed my thoughts and feelings on Instagram, but we're not going to get into how I feel about it. This is not about me. But these are some things to consider when it comes to publishing it and where. One of the things that we do go over when you take your creative thinking style assessment with me are the platforms that are best suited for your creative thinking style and your rhythm. So that's something that you can get further clarity on if we work together. But if you are going to just take this information from this video and try it out for yourself and see how you feel just trying it out, then those are the platforms that I would be referring to when I say the ones that reward depth over speed. All right. So in closing, my beautiful, brilliant aesthetic thinkers, I want you to stop asking, is this perfect? And I want you to start asking, is this coherent enough to be real? Okay. Is this coherent enough to be real? And when I say real, I mean, is it relatable? Does it resonate with people? Does it get the point across? Is it clear enough that although you might have some stuff that can be perfected, can the person get the gist? Do they get the point? Is it doing what it needs to do? So perfectionism is not vanity. It's not vanity. It is honestly a sign of how much you care. It is a sign that your taste level as an aesthetic thinker is working, but you have to be mindful of when you're kicking it into high gear. When is it really coming in? And how do I work within the rhythm that allows me to honor my aesthetic thinking without holding me back on putting out my work? So the workflow is going to be very, very important for you. Very, very important. For most people, as creatives that are struggling with consistency, it is a workflow issue. You have to know your rhythm. You have to understand it so that you can work with it and honor it. The next thing that I want you to remember takeaway with you is that visibility doesn't ask you to abandon your standards, no matter how much you feel like it does. It does not ask you to abandon them. It asks you to meet them in public gradually. You are allowed to be a work in progress. And I know you've heard this before, but allow me to present it to you in a different way, in a way that I hope resonates with you a little bit deeper. Your work, you are literally allowed to put out something that 5 years from now you would not do it the same way. You are allowed to change your mind, you are allowed to improve, you are allowed to put it out there before you have the best equipment, the best quality, even before you can say it and articulate it the best way. Cuz I feel like that holds a lot of people back too. I don't know how to say it, I don't know how to put it out there, I don't know how to word it the right way. Word it the wrong way, but put it out there. Put it out there. You'll be surprised at how rewarding it is for people to, no, that's not how I want to say it. You'll be surprised at how good it feels and how much it can resonate with people just because it makes them feel something, not because of how it looks. Looks are great, aesthetics are important, but the emotion, the way that you can make people feel, do not ignore that, okay? Do not take that for granted. That still makes you an aesthetic thinker, and that is a strength that you have as one. So, the last thing that I wanna ask you is, what is one thing from today that you are going to try? I would really love to hear that. Are you going to try the creative rhythm that I shared with you? Are you going to do the weekly rhythm and see how that feels? Are you going to go back through the 5 steps and figure out which one is holding you back the most and work on improving that? Are you going to look at the areas where you get stuck and challenge yourself to focus on how you can improve in those areas? Or are you going to turn it up a notch? Are you gonna turn it up a notch? And you're gonna be like, "You know what? I'm an aesthetic thinker. I have sensory intelligence." Who got that? Because I don't know a lot of people that got that. I know I have pattern recognition. I can sense things, I can embody it. I can create things that feel good, that are harmonious, that make people feel something. I can do that. And I'm going to lean into that more. I'm going to challenge myself to show up like that person. I'm a try a new skill. Like, I would love to know that. I feel like there's probably so many different ways that you can take what I've shared with you today. So I would love to hear how you plan on putting this into action for yourself and your business. And if your action step is maybe to figure out what is my creative thinking style definitively, I need to know, then you know where to go. You can come over to me. I will drop the link to it in the description box so you can book your creative thinking style session and we can work on what you are building together, and I can help you be very clear on what that looks like, the strategy, who you are, understanding yourself better so that you can start to show up in a way that's consistent, where you can be confident, where you can be bold, and you can be authentic. So, yes, let me look and see these comments. Yes, okay. A Slack will be loading. I'm turning it up a notch and taking the lead. Yes. Woo, 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 woo. I love to hear that. You found something to eat? You found something to eat? Okay. I love to hear that. Yay. Okay, y'all. Okay. I'm gonna be I definitely gotta, I might have to do a, I'm gonna have to go into the community and get some things off my chest. But y'all, I'm feeling really good about this. We have one more creative thinking style to go over, and that's the inspirational thinker. Something told me when I started this series that the inspirational thinker was going to be the final one. I don't know what it was. Something just told me. I'm like, inspirational thinking is going to be the last one that I do. And, you know, it is what it is. I'm not sure who the case study is going to be, which is interesting. I played around with the idea of making myself the case study. That would be interesting. A part of me wants to like choose somebody else though. I don't know why, but I don't like making things about me. But we'll see. We'll see what speaks to me. But that should be I should be doing that on Tuesday. Um, so yeah, that's our final one. I don't know where to take. I don't know where we're gonna take this after I do the inspirational thinking though, y'all. We got at least one more week, maybe two, depending on how many times I go live next week. But this has been a fun series. I don't want it to end. I don't want it to end, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Okay, we'll wait. Wait a second. Actually, come on, come over here. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Come here. All right, y'all. The kid wanted to come on. He's been itching to come on, haven't you? Yeah. You like being on camera? All right, y'all. Well, I'm gonna get off of here. The if you weren't able to catch it from the beginning, definitely catch the replay, and we'll see what I conjure up next week for our inspirational thinking case studies. Oh, I love that. I love that so much, Adrian. I enjoy having you in them. I I I have to. I got something. I'll share it with you on Slack. I'll share it with you on Slack. But yeah, so we're gonna get off of here. Do you want to? What you want to say, Kyrie? You got to actually talk. Here's the mic. Bye. All right, y'all. Bye.